She ran on promises that she has completely backed out of, just like every other politician. She ran on, the whole brand new Congress. I'm not a politician platform, to the point of going so far as lying about her background, which she didn't have to. There were plenty of other people that were business owners and other things that didn't lie about that to be a part of our slate. Why did she lie and just act like, oh, I was just a bartender? Bullshit. And so
it's a better backstory. It's somehow a more blue collar backstory. It is.
I was on that call. I remember why. I was just like, and I was kind of new I was one of the founders of Brand New Congress, but I came about 5 months later, and I was new at that time. So I was kind of like, this is one of my first bios I was writing. I was like, are we not going to be honest here and mention that, she's partial owner of the restaurant, which is fine. That's cool. Don't we support small businesses? I was like, you can just be like, I'm a small business owner. What's wrong with that? It was just strange to me.
It's just like Nina said, and Nina's been on our show several times, and she said, we didn't take a vow of poverty. Like, there isn't, you do not have to be offended by this idea that you have success in the capitalist system, even if you're trying to change it. And there is this idea of just this like total rejection of success as like that's some type of a martyr spot that you have to stand on and be like,
I don't abide by that. No. But I find Alex very disappointing. I've generally feel like over the past few years, I've always given her the benefit of the doubt on so many things. And I've always sort of like pulled punches because, one, I'm old enough to be her mother. And I feel like, she had such potential to be like, I thought she could have been the Mockingjay. And instead, I hate to say it, but you know what has happened.
That's awesome.
It has officially happened. Alex is officially one of our bootlickers. And I honestly never thought that this would be the case at this point, but yet here we are. Sorry.
Me, myself, and I, you may be right, but she isn't the future in the sense that she's going to have the type of impact that you think she's going to have. It's not going to happen because the system is failing at such a rate right now that rosy words and political rallies and speeches don't mean jack shit anymore. They just don't. What made Bernie so unique is that he had a track record of a generation's worth of standing on the House floor by himself, standing all by himself, talking against the war in Iraq. There's just things that he did that he did not ever care about whether or not he was going along to get along. That was never his MO. But Alex's MO has turned into, I am going along to get along. That's my MO now. And Nathan J. Robinson just put up a post that was revealed from a meeting that happened the other day, as Alex has obviously tried to obtain a ranking member position in the Democratic Party. When pressed last month by Cuellar and Sanchez, Henry Cuellar, of course, being
another piece of shit. Move on.
Representative that AOC has tried to support a primary challenge against. Ocasio-Cortez said she did what she thought was right at the time, but she was wrong in her mind. Now, she got her mind right.
Just read it. Stop ad-libbing.
A person familiar with the interaction said. Now, she told the group she's committed to helping all of her colleagues win in tough districts, including the moderates, and is focused on helping Democrats win back the majority of the House. We have one more. Ocasio-Cortez, 35, didn't apologize as she made her case to become the top Democrat on the high-profile House Oversight Committee. She did, however, tell her colleagues that she has matured and understood that a leadership role required additional responsibilities to support a whole caucus. She promised not to try to defeat her colleagues. She's a team player now and will help them win, she said, according to the two meeting attendees.
Now, Pete, and Jen, it's been a while. So do you guys care if I give just a very brief history lesson about what Brand New Congress was?
No, go ahead. By all means. It's just that this official Alex transferring into bootlicker territory officially.
And some people may not understand why. They're like, oh yeah, she would support her other Democratic colleagues. That would make sense. Well, there is a glaring reason why there's several there's several things in this that shows that she has changed tremendously and that she ran on a falsehood from the beginning. She kind of duped people, right? And I mean, I can remember I actually had conversations with Peter a long time ago about Alex, and he was like, I don't know, let's give her a chance. And I was like, I think she's gonna sell out, Pete. Do you remember those? A couple beers.
I knew that she sold out when she didn't have the gall to support. Forget supporting Jen against Wasserman Schultz. You want to talk about the non-starter in politics? Nobody crosses Debbie, and I still think that's because she was in charge of the party for 6 years and she knows where all the bodies are buried. But the fact that she didn't even come out for Cori, people forget that Alex did not actually come out for Cori Bush.
And people might not know what that means, so we can explain why that's such a big deal that she wasn't giving endorsements. You know what I mean? Not to cut you off, but I think that
Zeynab, by all means, you're good at explaining the entire system of how this all works.
So Brand New Congress was launched in 2017 by former Bernie Sanders staffers, who some of them ended up being massive grifters themselves later on. That's a whole other story.
Oh, yeah.
Middle seat, cough, cough. But anyway, it was started as a great idea. This idea was, let's overturn Congress. Let's run people. There's a ton of uncontested seats. There are still a ton of uncontested seats, which I need to do some reporting on because this year was insane. I've been compiling all the data. I think it's 75% of seats nationwide were uncontested this year across the board. Absolutely insane. But so there were all these uncontested seats in Congress. So with all these uncontested seats, let's focus on Congress specifically, and let's get rid of some of these people that have been in there for 35 years. It shouldn't be a career pathway. There should be some people challenge. One of the things that we had noticed was that there were people that hadn't had challengers in some of these districts forever, or that they were volatile. But we were looking for people. So the way that the system worked, and Alex was not one of them, come to find out. She wasn't one of the people nominated by her community, but most of our candidates were nominated by their communities and recruited. But people sent in, somebody else had to nominate our candidates. So like when we talked to Jen, we had gotten several nominations from Florida to speak to Jen before we endorsed Jen when she was running. So we launched campaigns at Brand New Congress. We got the nominations, then we went through the nominations. We cold called people that were nominated. We were like, hey, your community has nominated you to run for Congress. So these were some of these people, like Paula Jean Swearingen, had never even considered running for office, which was really cool. Some of the best ones were people that we recruited. The whole idea was to try something different, to have people running that aren't politicians, that don't come from that background, that come from community service backgrounds, organizing backgrounds, and are outside of that system beltway. We wanted to run independents. We tried to run a progressive Republican. And we were running Democrats at Brand New Congress. Now, this isn't Justice Democrats. We'll get into that in a second. Brand New Congress launched first. Our first candidate announced was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Our second was Paula Jean Swearingen against Joe Manchin. Now, we launched AOC's campaign. We got her swag, got her trained. I wrote her bio. I wrote her speeches. I did a ton of they did a ton of prep with Alex, but then when I came in, I did a ton of prep with Alex about issues, about, how to speak, about, certain things, media prep, speech prep, policy prep, all of that. And so one of the foundational principles of Brand New Congress is that we shared a platform, and that platform supported the Green New Deal. This was before Green New Deal legislation was brought forward, based on things like the Reclaim Act and other policies such as this. We supported Medicare for All. We were one of the first organizations to support Medicare for All. We actually held the very first press conference for Medicare for All ever. And so those were two foundational programs. Later, we released a 21st Century Bill of Rights, which I wrote in 2020. But our candidates all signed on to a platform to support each other, endorse each other, help each other out with their campaigns, lift each other up, and to also support these foundational values. 1, no corporate money. 2, support these foundational values rooted in human rights that are anti-war, pro-health, and we had a very basic platform, but it was a progressive platform, or a more leftist platform. And another one was that we were going to primary and challenge sitting Democrats and get them out of office. That was the whole thing. The whole thing was to challenge people sitting in Congress and bring people in and help support primaries and help support general elections. That was the whole thing. So everyone signed this to not take corporate money and to unseat these corporate politicians and these middle of the road politicians and these politicians that take corporate money. She literally signed a pact to challenge Democrats that take corporate money. That is what she ran on. She ran against Joseph Crowley because he was the top Democrat, one of the top Democrats at the time, and had one of the highest amounts of corporate money. He was right up there with Wasserman Schultz. Her whole campaign was challenging the seats of power, challenging these Democrats, challenging Democrats with corporate money, not taking corporate money, how they need to be replaced. That's what she ran on. And now she's like, I'm going to protect those very people and work against people like me that want to challenge.
Exactly.
I'm going to pull the ladder, kick the ladder out from underneath me. And that's part of why Justice Democrats especially ended up being a failed strategy. And Brand New Congress did too once the organization, the board, unfortunately started focusing, which I advised against, only on Democrats and reforming the Democratic Party and moving more moderate, and things changed. And it was very frustrating. And they started working with consulting firms and a whole bunch of stuff. You know, this happens with these organizing groups. It's a mess. But AOC, she started up this ladder. She made these promises to her constituents. Her whole aesthetic, her whole promise, her whole vibe was to take on corporate money, to unseat these people. And she always said, if I have to be a one-term candidate or a one-term congressperson, so be it. I'm going to stick to my principles and constantly challenge the system. That was her thing. I know because I fucking wrote it. Excuse my language.
No,
I wrote it. I wrote "Bring the fucking milk." That was me.
And I want to point out something very important here. Donald James is one of our most loyal supporters. We really appreciate that he's here. And here's where you're wrong, Donald. I'll tell you why. Thomas Massie, who I believe may even be your congressman, it goes without saying that he is the best that the GOP has to offer. This guy I don't even know if he sits on a single committee because he goes against the grain. He does not take corporate money. He doesn't even meet with lobbyists. And he is the most revered member of probably the MAGA movement overall. And he literally just had an expose come out with a friend of ours, Martha Bueno, down in Miami, who exposed Cat Turd and DC Drano as basically being a couple of additional grifters on the MAGA right who are just doing it for money. They don't believe in anything. They believe in the paycheck. Like Charlie Kirk.
He has an 86% approval rating.
Yeah. Which goes to show you that I don't want to hear this bullshit about how AOC doesn't have power or Bernie doesn't have power. They choose not to use it for the reasons that would make them basically politically immortal if they really wanted it. They could do that. Thomas Massie doesn't give a flying fuck what committee he sits on. Alex does care what committee she sits on.
Yeah, and she's thrown an entire movement under the bus.
Exactly.
There were how many candidates did we have, Jen? We had like 89 candidates all together in 2 election cycles. We garnered more than 14 million votes across the country. That's substantial. Cori Bush got elected, AOC got elected, and a lot of our candidates got close. But we did learn a lot. What we learned is the Democratic Party will throw everything. Like some people were naive because they were former Democrats and they thought, oh, you know, if we're running in a district where there's not a Democrat running, the Democrats aren't going to challenge us. The Democrats still challenged progressives even when there wasn't a Democrat running. And it was even when they won the primary and were running against the Republican in Paula Jean Swearingen's district, for instance, they sided with Shelley Moore Capito, the Democratic Party did, over Paula Jean Swearingen. Even donating to Shelley Moore Capito's campaign. So we discovered this. We learned a whole hell of a lot. But I'm so angry because one of the reasons that the movement deflated was because of people like AOC and Bernie. And
they left it. They left it.
Mm-hmm.